Hey, what's going on everyone? Welcome back to 75 South Garden. If you're new here, please subscribe. If you find any of the information useful, leave a comment, hit the like button, share it if you want to. Now these are the transplants for my fall garden. So what I'll be doing today, once I show you all how I like to prep, I'm going to go ahead and transplant my round Dutch cabbage. As you can see here, the cabbage moths have already started attacking my plants, so I'm going to go ahead and get them transplanted. And down here we have the lettuce transplants, which aren't quite ready yet. We still have 90-degree temps here in zone 8A, and hot temps make lettuce bolt. So I'm going to keep these inside for about another week or two until it really cools off. Then I'll transplant them into the garden. But for now, I'm going to show you all step by step how I like to do my fall garden prep. Okay, so I'm down at the main cage now. Before prepping the soil, you want to remove all weeds that are visible. And if you take a closer look here, most of the weeds in this raised bed where I have my bell peppers, these are mostly trees from the nuts that fall out of the trees. You want to make sure that you're pulling them up all the way down to the root. If not, they're just going to grow back, and you don't need weeds competing with your new transplants. Now if you're still growing tomatoes in your yard, you want to make sure that you remove all of the old leaves that are dying off, like the one you see here. Also leaves that are starting to look like the ones here. Now if you ever see any leaves that are folded like this, 9 times out of 10, there's a moth forming inside. So remove all of the old tomato leaves, remove your weeds. You also want to remove any old vines. Now this is an old cucumber vine that I pretty much forgot about, and I'll be removing that today also, because this is just going to draw bugs. Let's see. Now for those of you that have already planted your brassicas, and they're starting to look like this, it's because you have cabbage moths flying around. They're laying eggs underneath the leaves, and once those eggs hatch, they turn into these green caterpillars that you see here, and within days they can destroy a whole plant. Now these have only been out here for 4 days, and as you can see, a whole leaf is almost gone. Now if you don't know what a cabbage moth is, it's this little white butterfly. I trapped one inside here earlier. It's that little white butterfly that's flying around right there. That's who's responsible for all of those caterpillars that are eating up your plants. So to control that, what I'm going to use is neem oil along with a little BT. Now you want to spray this while they're actually feeding on your plants. 1 tablespoon per gallon. And they're going to eat it and die off. And it will also keep them away from your plants once they've died off. Now if it rains, you want to go back and spray again once the rain stops until it gets cold, because if you don't do that, this little butterfly is just going to keep coming back and dropping more eggs and growing more caterpillars that are going to pretty much eat up your plants. Alright, so down here I have my red Russian kale. And this is where I had the little cabbage moth that I caught earlier. And it was actually 2 of these. One got out when I opened my netting. If you look closely at the leaves, you can see that they have damage just like the brassicas. And we have lots of baby caterpillars. So I'm going to end up spraying these also. And I'll be removing those 2 collard plants, because in just 4 days we now have lots of aphids. Now if you follow me on Facebook, you would have seen these 4 days ago in one of my stories, and they were clean. Now we have aphids everywhere. So I'm going to cut these out and toss them in some water so they can drown. And I'll add the rest of my red Russian kale. The first step that I do to revive my old soil in my raised beds is simply adding compost. Now the compost that I'll be using today is composted chicken manure. Now along with that, I'll be adding just a little wood ash from my fireplace, which contains phosphorus, potassium, and a few micronutrients. Now along with those 2, I'll be adding a little Azomite. And since I'm growing cabbage here and collards, I'll also be adding blood meal. Now with the Azomite, it has over 70 micronutrients that your soil needs to have a balanced pH. Not just the N, P, and K that most fertilizers focus on. It's also going to increase the yield and the growth rate of all of your plants. So the first thing you want to do, just go ahead and loosen up the old soil. Now this soil isn't that bad. It has a few chunks here and there, like the one you see here. We're going to break all of that up and mix in fresh compost. So once you have it nice and loose, you can go ahead and mix in your fresh compost. Now another thing you can add to revive your soil is worm castings. And since I have plenty of worms, I probably won't be buying any. Now that I have my soil nice and loose, I'm going to go ahead and add my chicken manure. Now if your manure has any type of grass in it, go ahead and get that out before you mix it in. Now to mix this and break it down, you can use a hoe or a simple garden rake. A garden rake serves as a pretty good hoe. All you have to do is push it down and mix it in. Remove any weeds that you see while mixing it. Now if you're buying manure from the store, you probably won't see that. Now that I have everything mixed evenly, I can go ahead and add my Azomite. I'm just going to add a few handfuls. Now if you read the back of the bag, it's probably going to say use 1 pound per 10 square feet. I'm not going to use that much. I'm also going to add my blood meal. It's just a handful. or 2. That's all the blood meal that I need. The last step is my wood ash. And that's it. Now what I'm going to do is mix this into the top layer with my garden rake, water it in really good, and I'll be ready to transplant my cabbage transplants. Now that I have everything mixed in, all I have to do is transplant my cabbage, water it in, and add mulch. So what I'm going to do now is finish the rest of this raised bed and transplant my round Dutch cabbage. Alright y'all, I finally got this bed complete, and all of my round Dutch cabbage is transplanted. Now if you're going to be growing cabbage this fall, you don't have to buy these from the nursery. Within 1 month, these are ready to go into the ground. Now these were started on August the 9th and transplanted on the 19th, which was yesterday. So now all I have to do is put my onions down, because I'm going to be growing onions in the center of all of the center blocks. I also got all of my weeds out of the bed over here where I'm growing my bell peppers. And I did a little pruning so that the sunlight can reach the tops that weren't getting any sun. Alright, now let's move along to the other side. Over here I have my purple basil and random potatoes that I found in the bed in the corner where I harvested my potatoes earlier this year, and more purple basil in the back. Now over here, this is where I usually grow my herbs. And these are the Italian oreganos that are pretty much dormant right now. So I'm going to place those in a 5-gallon container. And down here, these are all of the little tree seedlings that I pulled out of this one bed. So I'm going to get this prepped, and this is where I'm going to grow my lettuce. And over here, in this new bed, I'll be growing carrots. And in the back, we have sugar snap peas that I grew up the trellis here. And behind it, this is where I was growing my bush beans earlier this year. And I'm going to be growing carrots here also. And this one has been prepped. Now over here where I have my cherry tomatoes, I'm not sure what I'm going to put here, but they're still producing. So what I'm going to do is let these keep growing until we get a frost. And I'll probably be planting more cabbage here. Now over here in the corner, this is where I grew my potatoes earlier this year. And I had a hill of dirt going across here. So what I did was I separated this, and all of the potatoes that I found in the hill that I missed, I planted them on this side. And I was going to plant carrots here, but I seen this coming up, so I decided to make a little hill around it and let it grow. Now I still might grow carrots on this side. And right here on the trellis, these are black-eyed peas. They have started to grow back. Now this vine actually died off, and all I did was add a little blood meal, and it started to grow back, and they're now producing again. So I'm going to let those grow until we get a frost and they actually die off. Now over here in this bed where I'm growing the tomatoes, I'm just patiently waiting on these to start to ripen, like the one that you see here. As soon as they start to turn colors, I go ahead and pull them off. So as these finish, I'll be taking each plant down, and this is where I'll be planting my collards this year. now I'm down to 3 plants on the side of this bed. So I have this last black creme here. I'll be taking this one down, and the Cherokee purple right here has actually started to grow back, and we have a fresh tomato growing. So I'm going to let that one finish along with the 4 that I have up here. And while I'm at it, I'm going to go ahead and break off the top of that plant, because if I don't, it'll keep producing, and I don't need all of those tomatoes. I'm ready to go ahead and plant my collards. And right here in the center of my cage, these are all of my pepper plants from the back porch. Now I had to move them down here because it gets way too hot up there and it dries out my containers pretty fast. As you can see right here, all of the leaves on this one are yellow. And once they get to this point, the plant is pretty much stressed. It'll start producing flowers, and you'll notice that the leaves will start to fall off. So if you're having that problem, it's probably because it's too hot where you are right now, and they do require a little shade. Also, if you have any that are changing colors like this one, you can go ahead and harvest them and let them ripen inside. Now this is just a quick little tour on what's still growing here for the fall at 75 South Gardening. Now if anyone has had any problems with disease in any of their raised beds or wherever you're growing your crops, please don't try to revive that soil. Just go ahead and replace it, because the pathogens for whatever disease that plant had are still in your soil. Now if you're not going to be growing a fall garden, I highly suggest that you grow some type of cover crop. That way you don't have to worry about your nutrients being eroded from your soil. Also, if you see any type of fuzzy caterpillar like this, please don't try to pick it up. Now what you're looking at right here is a patch of clover. Now in my opinion, clover is one of the best cover crops that you can use, and it will survive with temperatures as low as 0 degrees. Clover is also a part of the bean and pea family. So clover is going to add nitrogen to your soil and help it retain moisture. Now the roots will also keep the soil nice and loose throughout the season and aerate it for you. As you can see, it spreads pretty fast and acts as a natural mulch and suppresses weeds. And you won't have to worry about nutrients washing away due to the rain over time. And that's pretty much it for today's video, you guys. If this information helps you, hit the like and subscribe button. And also, if you're doing a fall prep, drop a comment below and tell me a few things that you like to do to prep your garden for the fall. And always remember to plan your garden with your health in mind.